When it comes to planting healthy churches, there are a lot of variables and things for us to consider. And in my experience, there are 4 things in particular that often cause church plants to fail. And so today on Practical Church Planting, we're going to share 4 thoughts on why some church plants don't make it.
Welcome back to Practical Church Planting, where in 15 minutes or less, we'll give you practical tips, advice, and encouragement to help you plant and grow healthy churches. My name is Brian Androsian. Joining me is Dylan Dodson, and today we're talking about 4 thoughts on why some church plants don't make it.
Yeah, so I wrote a blog about this a couple weeks ago, and people seem to like it, so I thought we would elaborate in this episode.
Yes.
I want to be clear that obviously this all goes back to the grace of God, the providence of God. He'll make whatever happen, even if we do a terrible job or even if we do a great job. Right. He's in control. That being said, there's, I think, a very human reasons why some don't work and some do work, along with God allowing it to happen. So I just want to be clear on that. And you can do some of these great and it not work out, and do some of these poorly and it does work out, because it's more than we can just control. But for the things that we control, here are some things that I have observed the past couple of years, relationships that I've had with friends and people that I know whose churches didn't quite make it, some things that I saw. So here's number one. Number one is this, that fundraising was not given all the effort it needed. And so I think everyone knows you need to raise money, but a lot of it turns into, I'm going to send a bunch of letters, or maybe do a phone call, maybe meet with somebody, even though I don't really want to do that. I think the younger you are, the harder it is, because you've grown up with texting and not face-to-face, and that can be intimidating. But like Christine and I, when we launched New City Church and we were raising money for our support, raising money for the church, every single person we met with face-to-face gave us money except for one person. And not only that, they all gave us what we asked them to give or more. So they not only gave us what we want. So all that to say, you've got to be intentional, meet with as many people as possible face-to-face, and call everybody else you can't. And if you can't do any of those things, then you send letters. But you've got to give it all the effort you can. And if somebody says no, that doesn't mean you never talk to them again. Like we had some no's, and as New City got closer to launching, so we tried to raise money in the beginning. As it got closer, we asked again, they turned into yeses. And so all that to say, I just found a lot of people didn't give it the effort that it was needed. And of course, when money runs out, there's only so much you can do.
Makes things tough.
And so I just saw this, that yes, fundraising is hard, but people gave up or did not put the effort that was needed, and then it caused a lot of problems.
One thing I think is interesting, and I've heard multiple people kind of ask this question at different events and just reading online and things like that, of when you're looking at different networks of who to go with, different church planting networks, the question a lot of times comes up of who gives more money, or who's going to give me money, which I'm not, naive. That is a question that needs to filter in somewhere. At least, you need to at least think through that. But I think that goes back to a lot of people don't want to do it themselves. And I don't mean to say like everybody's lazy, but it does go back to people don't want that awkwardness, or don't want to, or want to do at least as little of it as possible, and so are hoping it'll come from other sources. I think if your number one criteria for a church planting network and a nomination is how much money they're going to give, that's probably a problem. And so, again, a lot of contexts are different, like urban settings, or maybe the relationships that you have. If you grew up in church and have a lot of Christian friends, or maybe you don't, like a lot of that matters. But regardless of the season or the place you find yourself, you've got to be willing to give 110%, or it won't go. I mean, it won't last forever. I had a guy who commented on this when I posted the blog. He said, this was my thing, that I did not try as hard as I knew I should have, or I gave up too easy, or I didn't ask people more than once. And so all that to say, if you're running low on money, don't have enough money, again, some of that's out of your control, but have you actually done everything you could? Or I've also found this, that people finally gave everything they had, but it was too late. Like once they were completely almost out of money, or once they realized, oh, this isn't going to work, then kind of like the scaredness or the embarrassment of having to ask for money goes away, because you're just trying to survive. But if you wait too long to get to that point, then the bills are going to overtake when that money starts coming in. I did find that people started trying harder when things started to look bleak. But if you wait too long to really attack it, then it can be too late. Totally.
So that's number one. Fundraising was not given all the effort it needed. So if you're trying to plant a church, if that's convicting to you, good. But it maybe not be. Maybe you're trying the best that you can. But that's one big thing that I saw. Here's number two, that there wasn't enough thought given to systems and structures. So of course, everybody says they want to plant a church or be in ministry because we just want to love people and preach the Bible. Which, of course, that's great.
Preach it and they will come.
But if that's all you want to do, than just plan to be a house church. And there's nothing wrong with a house church. But most people in an American context, that is not their goal. So that's not their goal, but yet their systems and their structures, or their desire for systems and structures, will prohibit them from getting there. Because once you have more than 10 or 20 people, you can't be one person that does everything. And so and here's the thing, even if you're not good at systems and structures, it's finding people that are, that value it. But, as you want to grow and as you want to reach more people, if there's not a system for getting people plugged in, or if there's not a system for connecting with first-time guests, or if there's not a system or a way to get people plugged into a community group, or to serving, or if they have information about, if there's not a process to make these things happen easier, then that will limit the amount of people that will limit your growth, because that'll limit how many people can get connected. Yeah,
I think this, like you said, this is a scenario where you need to surround yourself with people who are good at things that you're not. I think a lot of church planners probably aren't the best systems people, more visionaries and more like entrepreneur type, but maybe not so much with the details. And so it's a matter of surrounding yourself with people that are good at those things, but also not using that as an excuse to take your hands off of it. Because I think something that a lot of people do is they think, I'm not great at this system, so I'm going to bring someone in that is, or find someone that is, and then I don't want to hear about it. You figure it out, you do it, and that's it. And so one thing that I've kind of appreciated about our relationship is Dylan's not a big systems person, and I am. However, he's able to have conversations about it. He's not just completely naive to everything and just saying, just figure it out and don't talk to me about it. I think sometimes you can jump from being a church planner to wanting to be like a mega church pastor, where you have people that'll do everything for you, and great, but that's not really realistic when you have 20 people showing up. So I think it's, yes, bring people in that have strengths that you don't, and that's a very wise thing to do, but learn enough and be enough in the conversations to where you can hold a conversation and where you can actually participate in these decisions.
Yeah, and I know it's frustrating because you do want to love people and preach the gospel and all that sort of thing. So I'm not trying to display you wish you didn't have this stuff didn't matter, but it does. And if you're listening in the United States in a Western context, then you just know that this stuff matters. Yeah. And if you want to plant and grow a healthy church that's sustaining past just the size of a house, you have to care about systems and structures and find resources and stuff to help you with that. So that was number 2. Here's number 3. This is a big one because it's a problem that doesn't seem like it's a problem, and then it becomes a problem. So here's what it is. That not enough responsibility was given away. And a lot of times when the church is small, when you're just starting, you can do most everything. You can talk with everybody and meet with everybody and follow up with everybody, and you don't necessarily need, you want help for stuff, but you don't necessarily always need it, and because you don't need it, you don't give it away. But the problem is, if you never give it away, then it doesn't allow other people to create a sense of ownership. It doesn't train other people, so as things grow, that they can grow into the role. Because what happens too is, if you wait till you're a certain size and then you realize you need help and you've got to grab somebody, especially in a church plant setting, you're not hiring people, you probably can't afford it. Yeah. And so you got something that you've got to train someone on who has no idea how it works because they weren't helping you shape it from the beginning. And so I would just say this, that even if you don't need help with something, but you have somebody that's good at it or enjoys it, give it away, because A, they'll do it better than you do, and B, it'll create a sense of ownership where they'll also be excited about what's going on, more likely to invite people, more likely to give input and to help the rest of your launch team, the rest of your new or small church, or even if you're an established church, they'll kind of share their enthusiasm with others, and it will spread. So not enough responsibility was given away, which caused problems because not enough people had ownership in the church.
Yeah, and I like you talked about giving it away early too, because if you're giving responsibility to somebody who's never been in ministry or doesn't have a background in that, at the beginning when there's maybe not a lot of people coming around or things are a little bit simpler, that's more attainable to somebody who's never done this exact thing before. Who's never maybe worked in a church or never led volunteers or something along those lines. However, once you get a little bigger and things, even if you're not big numbers wise, just the longer it goes, the more things seem that they're well established, to then try and bring somebody in to try and take over something that maybe already has kind of a flow to it that they wouldn't have done, or something different. It's a lot more intimidating, and I think you'll be a lot less likely to find somebody that'll take it over and do it well.
Yeah, and I know one of the things, there's 2 things that make this difficult. One, thinking you don't need help, and so you never give it away, and then that causes problems. But 2, there's also a sense of feeling guilty of well, that was what I'm supposed to do, so what do I do now? Yeah, True. And I would just say that every time you give something away, there might be, especially if you're a newer or a smaller church, as you get bigger, have more things going on, it'll be easy to fill that time. But I remember, when we started, we had, you and we had a bunch of people that, or 4 people that were raising support on staff. That's not a normal church plant. So that's not a normal story for most church plants. So I remember sometimes feeling guilty, well, what do I do? Shouldn't I be doing this? Because I need to be doing something, or I need to be doing that. But you'll find that people will not only it's not only good for them, but then they'll do it better than you can. And so it's like, no, actually pouring into and developing and making and just supporting the people that are better at it anyway is actually better for the church because they're better at it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I found as well.
Frees you up to focus on other things too.
So not enough responsibility was given away, even if it doesn't feel like you have to. If you want to get bought in, especially in the early phases, you've got to give stuff away so that other people can lead.
And one thing I'll add to that is there's nothing more frustrating than someone who wants to serve and help in a church that they can see their needs, that nobody gives them a responsibility.
Right. Yeah. And I was going to say, in the opposite of that, there's oftentimes like there are very few things that are as cool as seeing somebody serve for the first time using their gifts, and they never thought that they could use their gifts in a capacity that serves a church. Yeah. Like, if stuff that maybe traditionally you don't think about, like photography or social media or graphics or planning, your sermon series, or planning what your environment, your lobby looks like. Like some people love this, and that if you giving them the ability to use their gifts to serve the church, a lot of people can't believe it. Yeah. And totally. Then that will turn them into raising support to come on staff. So of course you do that. So not enough responsibility was given away. And then number 4, these are all big, but number 4 is this, that the church planter tried to plant alone. In other words, they were not connected with a denomination or a network of any kind. Mm-hmm. They did not have typically people that are older and wiser speaking into their life, or maybe they did, but they said, I'm supposed to plant a church and I'm going to do it my way anyway. And oftentimes, I found, one, if people are telling you it's not a good time for you for various reasons, there's probably a good reason for it. True. Or 2, if you're even scared of going through a process of assessment and evaluation, it probably shows that maybe that it's not the right time, but you want to do it anyway. Mm-hmm. And I know this can be hard. I know you can feel like God has something for you to do, but all throughout Scripture. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and this is just a side note, but they were talking about, when David was anointed by Saul, but then he went to go back to being a shepherd for, he wasn't a king right away. He knew he was going to be king, but it took a while. And so I think sometimes it's like, I go to a conference, or I have this come to Jesus moment with somebody or myself or whatever, and I'm like, I got to do this, and I got to do this now. Mm-hmm. A lot of the people that I've seen these past few years, just people that I know, in fact, I would say is all of them that I've seen these past few years, the churches that did not launch or launched and had to close within 5 years or less, probably one, if not multiple of these were the reason. Yeah. And I think the last one's big because it shows that you're not equipped or you're not ready if you're trying to do it by yourself. Yeah, I think that, like you said, there's a reason that people generally try and do it by themselves. I don't think there's any reason to do it by yourself. I don't think you could really make an argument for it. Especially today where there's so much. That's what I was going to say. There's so many networks and networks that have different specialties if you're in a rural setting or things like that. Right. And there's so much knowledge and leadership out there that are looking for church planners and looking for people that to go and do it on your own, I think either shows some arrogance or some, like you said, just some fear that maybe that you won't get approved, and so it's easier to go alone. Right. So yeah, church planner try to plan alone, no network, no denomination, nobody speaking into their life, and then unsurprisingly, things didn't work out. Right. So again, here's our 4 thoughts on why church plants don't make it. Number 1, fundraising was not given all the effort it needed. Number 2, there wasn't enough thought given to systems and structures. 3, not enough responsibility was given away. And number 4, the church planter tried to plant alone. Now, you do all these things well, it doesn't guarantee success. And you could do all 4 of these things poorly, and maybe things will go well for you. But generally speaking, these are some things that you want to look out for. So hey, thanks for listening today on Practical Church Planting. As always, practicalplanting.com/questions. If you have a topic or question you want us to cover in a future episode. And until next time, we'll be with you on Practical Church Planting. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Practical Church Planting. Whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or Practical Planting, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, make sure you like or subscribe or do whatever it's telling you to do or should do on that platform. And hey, if you are so tired of looking at our ugly faces, but you're not tired of listening to our beautiful voices, then you can find our podcast if you just search Practical Church Planting on iTunes or Google Play. Make sure not to just find it, not just to listen, but to subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. Brian, tell them to subscribe. Subscribe. See you next time.